Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on our chilling true crime stories. Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of America's most infamous serial killers, Ted Bundy. Was he born to kill? Let's find out. Let's rewind the clock and go way back to 1946. Picture this. A young woman named Louise is just 22 years old, and she finds herself in a difficult situation. She's pregnant and unmarried, which, let me tell you, was a huge taboo back in those days. So, she ends up in the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Vermont to give birth to her son. That son was none other than Theodore Robert Cowell, who we all know as Ted Bundy. Now, here's where things get really twisted. To avoid the social stigma of being an unwed mother, Louise's parents decide to raise Ted as their own son. Yeah, you heard that right. Ted grows up thinking his mom is his sister and his grandparents are his actual parents. Talk about a confusing childhood. Growing up in this web of lies and half-truths had to mess with Ted's head. I mean, can you even imagine finding out one day that your whole life is basically a lie? That the people you thought were your parents are actually your grandparents? And get this, the sister you looked up to. Yeah, she's your mom. So, you've got to wonder, how much did this confusing upbringing contribute to the twisted path Ted would later take? It's something psychologists and crime experts are still debating. Let's fast forward a bit. Ted Bundy is no longer that confused kid. He's now a young man stepping onto the campus of the University of Washington in Seattle. Picture the scene. It's the late 60 seconds. The air is buzzing with the spirit of change and revolution. And here comes Ted, ready to take on the world, or so it seemed. Ted was the guy you'd see at every campus event. Always impeccably dressed, always flashing that charming smile. He was the kind of guy who could talk his way into or out of anything. Professors loved him. They thought he was brilliant. Students were drawn to him. He was charismatic, to say the least. But here's the kicker, folks, that charm. It was like a mask, a really convincing one. Behind it was a mind that was already showing signs of darkness. While you and I might go to college to find ourselves or build a future, Ted was there sharpening skills he'd later use in a much more sinister way. So, it begs the question, was the University of Washington where Ted Bundy became the monster we know today? Or was it just a pit stop on a road that was already leading him there? Okay, guys, brace yourselves, because this is where the story takes a dark, dark turn. We're in the mid-70 seconds now, and something in Ted Bundy has snapped. He's no longer just that charming guy from college. He's become something far more sinister. From 1974 to 1978, Ted Bundy unleashed a wave of terror that still sends chills down our spines today. His victims, young women, often with dark hair, who had their whole lives ahead of them. These were daughters, sisters, and friends, and they were all tragically deceived. See, Ted used his charm like a weapon, a really deadly one. He'd approach these women in public places, sometimes even in broad daylight. Guys, he'd feign injury, like a broken arm, to appear less threatening. And because he seemed so normal, so charming, these women let their guard down. That's when he'd strike, leading them away to meet a fate too horrifying to fully comprehend. So, I've got to ask, how many of you think you'd fall for Ted's tricks? It's a scary thought, right? Because he didn't look like a monster, he looked like the guy next door. And that's what made him so terrifyingly effective. Alright, folks, now we're getting to the part of the story that's almost as unbelievable as the crimes themselves, the trial. Picture this, Ted Bundy, the man accused of these heinous acts, struts into the courtroom not in an orange jumpsuit, but in a suit and tie. Yeah, you heard that right. Get this, Bundy was so full of himself that he actually decided to represent himself in court. I mean, who does that? Most people would be begging for the best lawyer money could buy, but not Ted. He thought he could outsmart the legal system just like he had outsmarted his victims. Now, you might be thinking, did it work? Did his arrogance pay off? Spoiler alert, it didn't. The evidence was overwhelming, and the jury wasn't buying his act. And let's be real, no amount of charm could erase the horror of what he'd done. In 1989, Ted Bundy was finally sent to the electric chair, putting an end to his reign of terror. And you know what's crazy? People actually gathered outside the prison to cheer when he was executed. That's how deeply he had affected the public psyche. What a journey we've been on today, right? We've delved into the twisted life of Ted Bundy, from his confusing childhood to his horrifying crimes and the courtroom drama that followed. It's a story that leaves us with more questions than answers. So, here's the million-dollar question. Was Ted Bundy born to be a killer, a monster from day one? Or did his upbringing, his environment, and his choices shape him into the terrifying figure he became? It's a debate that's been going on for years, and we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Ted was a product of nature or nurture? And if you found this deep dive as intriguing as we did, go ahead and smash that like button. And hey, if you think this is a story that needs to be heard, don't hesitate to share this video. Let's get this conversation going far and wide. Alright, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining us on this intense journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay safe out there.